Roro Noa Zoro, the clear right-hand man of the newly dubbed Yonko, Straw Hat Luffy, the very man who permanently scarred Kaido after only one other swordsman in history could, the progenitor of the three-sword style who is steadily on his way to becoming the world's greatest swordsman, and also an advanced Conqueror's Haki user, known as the King of Hell. After collecting so many feats throughout the course of the Wano arc, what more does this already legendary swordsman need to do to reach the status of the current number one swordsman, Dracule Mihawk? Actually, I think he needs more than you may believe. And today, I'm here to explain to you how Zoro will be able to reach that next level. First off, let's start by going over what Zoro currently has at his disposal that may allow him to close the gap between him and his goal. Enma, the King of Hell. During the Wano arc, Zoro was given the Great Grade Sword, Enma, by Kozuki Hiyori in exchange for his previous sword, Shusui. And oh man was it worth it. You see, Enma is able to draw out Zoro's dormant Ryo Haki, and was part of the reason why he was able to scar Kaido in the battle on Onigashima. Zoro was then able to realize that Enma had been testing him in his fight against King, and came to the conclusion that he needed to pour out all of his armament and Conqueror's Haki at once to truly utilize the blade at its full potential, also known as King of Hell mode. Now how exactly will Zoro be able to use Enma to get to the next level that I spoke of earlier? First off, he needs to optimize the King of Hell mode completely. Right now, Zoro isn't able to use this ability for an extended period of time before running out of Haki. To do so, I believe that Zoro needs to learn to maintain his advanced Conqueror's coding at a level that satisfies Enma without going overboard. This may be possible by relying less on Enma and evening out his Conqueror's Haki on his other two swords, Sandai Kitetsu and Wado Ichimonji, the latter being the more important sword, and also our next topic. The first sword, a black blade. Wado Ichimonji, the blade that has been with Zoro the longest, and the one that he originally pinned his dreams on. I believe that this sword will be Zoro's most important in the next few arcs of the final saga. Not only was this weapon given to him by Kuina's father, it is also the blade that made Zoro develop the three-sword style in the first place. After her death, he vowed to make their mutual dream of becoming the world's greatest swordsman come true. But now that Zoro has come so far, what will be the next step he takes with this great grade sword to achieve that next level? Well, let's go back to Dressrosa, where we are actually given our first hint. After the fight against Pika, Zoro recalls a conversation with Mihawk where he is told that every weapon can be turned into a black blade like mine. You probably guessed it by now, but I truly believe that Zoro will need to first turn Wado Ichimonji into a black blade in order to close the gap between himself and Dracule Mihawk, and this will most likely happen sooner than we think. Now if we look at Zoro's dialogue with Gyukimaru in the early stages of Wano, we learn that black blades are forged through constant battle. With this, we can assume that the first sword Zoro will be able to forge into a black blade is Wado Ichimonji. This is because, like I said earlier, it is the sword that Zoro has had the longest. It is also the sword that Zoro originally used Haki with all the way back in Alabasta, and the sword that allowed him to actually cut steel. All of these things make Wado Ichimonji the perfect candidate to become Zoro's first black blade. We also find out before the raid on Onigashima that if Zoro is able to forge a black sword, then that blade's grade will be able to increase. Meaning if Zoro is able to take Wado Ichimonji to that level, he will have his first supreme grade sword, and the next step in Zoro reaching his ultimate goal. Despite this, however, there still lies something that Zoro needs to do to progress even further beyond. Sandai Kitetsu and the future. Ah yes, Sandai Kitetsu. Another one of the great grades. Wait a second. Another one of the skill for grade. Okay. Another one of the regular, degular, normal grade swords. You can see why I saved this one for last, because it's quite clearly the weakest link among all of Zoro's blades so far. I mean damn. Even Yubashiri was a higher grade sword than this, and Zoro lost that all the way back in Enies lobby. And yes, it is a cursed sword, which is cool and all, but even if Zoro were to somehow forge this into a black blade, it would only be graded as highly as Tashigi's sword she got off Mr. 11 back in the Alabasta saga. Dedicated Zoro fans like myself had hoped that back when we were introduced to Nidai Kitetsu at the beginning of Wano, he would replace it with that. It looks like Oda has other plans, however, and I think I know what that may be. So let's get something straight. Zoro doesn't really throw away his swords for no reason. He usually replaces a sword after it breaks, like against Mihawk in their original battle. But I know what you're thinking. Who the hell at this point of the story would be strong enough to break one of Zoro's swords? I mean, think about it. You would need some seriously monstrous strength and haki to achieve something like that. And you know where you could find some seriously strong people? In none other than the much anticipated arc of Elbaf. We know that because of some recent developments in the manga, we may actually be going there after the current arc. It would make complete sense if this is where Sandai Kitetsu finally breaks and makes Zoro realize that he needs a new sword to get stronger. Just look at Dory and Broggy back in Little Garden. Those two were so strong that they managed to easily tear a giant hole in a sea monster that would swallow entire islands whole. Now I imagine when we get to Elbaf, Zoro will have to face off with one of those extremely strong giants. We even know that some of them fashioned themselves as traditional swordsmen. So how fitting would it be for Zoro's sword to break, something that hasn't happened since Enies Lobby, against an extremely powerful Elbaf swordsman? It would definitely be very dramatic, and would also give Zoro a reason to upgrade to a more fitting blade for his level. After that, we would truly be able to say that Zoro has gotten closer to reaching a higher level than ever before. To end things off, I want to reiterate that to climb to the pedestal of the world's greatest swordsman, Zoro still has quite a way to go. But I think that these 3 points that I highlighted will be the steps that Zoro needs to take to ultimately reach that next level. I seriously cannot wait to see how he will grow as a swordsman and how he will eventually defeat the monstrous Dracule Mihawk. Let me know what you guys think will be Zoro's next sword in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell because we will be streaming another episode of the Voice Entry podcast this Saturday, so don't miss it. Later.